All right, everybody, we are live. And before we get started, go ahead and introduce yourselves um, so the people know who you are.
Well, hello. I'm not. My name is Niall Parker. I'm from Dallas, Texas. At this point, originally from Connecticut, and on my Facebook page, I tend to discuss a plethora of different issues. As of late, we know again, as Cassandra has said, the race issue has been pervading society. So I've been talking quite a bit about that, and I guess she picked up on that, and gratefully have an opportunity to converse with all of you today on that subject matter. Good to be here. Good to see all of you.
Good to see you.
Okay, next.
Well, my name's April. I am an occupational therapist by trade, and then also an author of a new book. I met Sandra. Actually, it was Mother's Day, so it's like funny that I get to talk to you again. It's Father's Day. So I also do a talk show as well with three other co-hosts. We talk about related issues, everyday life issues that you deal with. But then we have Christian solutions, and so I'm happy to be on this platform. Thank you, Sandra, again. So I look forward to this conversation, honestly.
Amen. Thank you for that. Thank you. Quincy.
Yes, my name is Quincy Hood. I'm originally from a little town outside of Shreveport, Louisiana. I currently reside in Frisco, Texas, right outside of Dallas. I'm a software developer by trade. Have a Master of Arts degree in Christian education from Dallas Theological Seminary. And race topics, ethnicity concerns are a major concern of mine. So thank you so much, Ms. Cassandra, for allowing me with this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Laurel.
And I'm Laurel Hurst. I was raised in rural Pennsylvania. I'm currently a student at The Ohio State University studying to be a mental health nurse practitioner. And I also run a business called Groove Therapy because I believe that there's a more holistic way of dealing with mental health than we have to this point. And many people are moving in that direction. I want to be part of that movement. And as far as race issues go, I'm fairly recently aware of the depth of pain in Black communities across our nation, and how many things that I was taught and many things that I may have even done are contributing to those pains. And I'm really thankful for this invitation today.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank you, Ms. Laurel, because I have invited probably about two other white folks, right? And white people, I should say. Please excuse my term. I invited them. And one particular was my colleague, and she was saying that she was scared. She said we have to deal with that. She said she was scared. The other one just didn't show, you know what I'm saying? So it's okay. It's okay. She had her reasons. But I'll give you props for showing up. That's what we call a bold soldier. But let's go ahead and jump right into it with George Floyd. I want to talk about him for 8 minutes and 40 seconds, since we just want to concentrate on George Floyd at this particular time. And the first thing I want to concentrate is when they had the knee on his neck. What did that mean to you, Prophet Niall Parker? What did that mean to you?
I think he's on mute. He's on mute, look like.
Yeah, unmute.
Okay, I got you. I'm so sorry about that. I was transitioning from the outside of the church to the car.
Okay.
So I had to sit down, and then Bugs is out there, so I had to had to get in here. But what it looked like to me was a man who, mind you, the police officer, who was a representation of very large demographic of society that places little to no value on people who look like me. And given our history, I can understand why that kind of thing is taught. We have never really been valued since we've been here, and we've had a certain label. we were here to work, we were here to serve, and nothing more. And what it looked like to me was the way you would handle an animal that you wanted to get control of. And what it made me consider was how I would probably feel if I had purchased a dog and brought the dog to my house to entertain myself and my family, and I taught it to roll over and sit and speak when I say and all of that. Well, then I had the occasion to ask myself the question, well, what would I feel like if the dog decided it was going to leave and purchase a house next door to mine or take control of my house? What would I feel like if the dog rose up and wanted to be what I thought I was? Because obviously you feel like you're superior to a dog and its job is only to obey. What position would it put me or the person in to feel like this thing that I brought here for my purpose now feels like it has its own destiny? And I think that in large, we are treated like animals, like dogs, spoken to as dogs and handled even by so-called professionals in a way that you would handle an animal that you need to get under control, because this is not what you were taught was the intention of their presence.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Parker. And it's okay to be angry because I think we get this thing mixed up. We are angry, and people have a problem with us being angry about how we're being treated. But the Bible says, "Be angry, but not sin not." Go ahead, Quincy.
You're exactly right, and that can be a struggle sometimes to fulfill what the Bible says as it relates to being angry and not sinning, not just in our actions, but also in our words as well. When I still haven't saw the entire video. I don't. At this point, I can't bring myself to see the entire video. My initial thoughts, however, is when we see individuals as humans, we treat them differently. When we see every individual that's being made in the image of Christ, regardless of their past, it should change the way that we treat them. It also should change the way that we speak to them. I agree with Mr. Niall Parker. It's almost as if former officer Chauvin did not see George Floyd as a human. I cannot imagine putting my knee on any human, regardless of their ethnicity, if they are face down and handcuffed. He is not resisting. There is no rationale at all for his action, as well as the actions of the other officers. There has been some talk that at least one of the additional officers did show some concern for Mr. Floyd, but even though he showed concern, his concern did not move to action. So we can talk, we can have concern, we can even have protest, but if it doesn't move to action, then it doesn't change. It doesn't complete the total change that need to be made. So those are my initial thoughts as it relates to George Floyd.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
Laurel, can she hear me? Go ahead, April. She can't. It don't look like she can hear me.
Well, first off, I want to say Happy Father's Day to the two gentlemen that we have here, every fathers, Prophet Parker and Quincy. I think that as an African American woman, fathers are so valuable to our community. But at the same time, your lens is much different than even, Cassandra and my lens. And then, then we have Laurel of another ethnicity who has a different lens as well. And so as an African American woman looking at the events that happened with George Floyd, with the knee, like I have to be like with Quincy, like I deal with healthcare. I deal with people dying. I work with the geriatric population. And so watching someone die is something that I'm not a fan of, especially murdered, someone being murdered. I think that what it represented to me when watching the clips, just the clips that I watched of the police officer on his knee for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, 8 minutes, and 46 seconds of a knee. The time, I don't even think we've been on this show for that amount of time, but to be able to have a knee and have no expression or no empathy, no concern when doing that, it just implies that I have a right, and I don't believe that I'm going to be like what I'm doing will have any consequence. I believe that that's what I saw. I saw someone who is comfortable with interrogation or hurting people and getting away with it and feeling though, so what? So what's going to happen? If he dies, he dies. I don't care. I'm not going to get in trouble. Okay, slap on the wrist, because I've had a slap on the wrist before. All right, fine, you can yell out. It doesn't matter. That's what I saw.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. Miss Laurel left. All right, so the next thing was mama. That still rings in my head when I hear, to be honest with you, if I did this show like when this happened, y'all would have really thought I wasn't saved, okay? Because I was just acting some type of way, okay? I was acting some type of way. I just was not acting like a Christian Cassandra, because it made me so angry. But that thing rings in my head, mama, because my son calls me mom. My son, when they're in need, when they need help, they reach out to their mom, they reach out to their mother. Let's talk about that. When he said "ma" and call out his mom twice, and I believe God is speaking to us as a nation and as the world, that our kids are crying out for mothers, and it's time for us to take our rightful place. It was symbolic of God is trying to shake these mothers up and stop acting like a child, stop acting immature, act like a mom. Okay, that is ready to assist and help when these kids cry out. Let's go, Prophet.
To me, and I'm right there with you on that. And as you were talking, my consideration was for someone in that position to call for their mother, especially knowing that the mother is dead. Obviously, it's symbolic of something else. So, what does mother mean to us? Mother, I think, chiefly means safety and nurturing. And so, when a man of that age will still cry out for his mother, it's an indication of how he feels emotionally unsafe in the situation that he's in, and that he's crying out for help. And no matter what age you get, especially if you have the privilege of knowing your mother, and she was a real one, she was a good one, she was present in your life and lived out and really exemplified what it was to be one. No matter how old you get, there's always going to be something in a man that needs to feel that, needs to feel that safety, needs to feel that nurturing. And to me, that's what he was crying out for, because I think he felt the real essence of unsafety in that situation when he felt his life slipping away from his grasp. And when he said mother, he was just crying out to be safe again. Unfortunately, the safety was not to be in this life, but in the next with God. It's just very unfortunate, but that's what it meant to me.
Ooh, that's good. Go ahead, April.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, it was tough for me to watch the video in general, to watch that. But what I do know is, like, from being able to, it's interesting that you talk about the safety, but what I do know of people, because I've dealt with people passing, watching the death process. And one of the things that people do hold on to, even as they're transitioning out, is that maternal, my mother, my father, where's my mom? you know, and mom is long gone. And I think that, you know, honestly, if I was to speculate, it would be, we are looking for that transition and being able to see them in the afterlife. And that is where a sense of comfort and security comes from. But I mean, I see this often. It, like I would say, at least 95% of the time, most of the people that I've seen transitioning in life from this world to the next into the spiritual realm always are calling out. And I think it was just his life slipping and feeling that security and safety with what I remember being comfort. And that was my mom.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Quincy?
I agree wholeheartedly with what Niall said and what April said. When I think about my mom, even to this day, I think about security, I think about safety, and I also think about her provision, you know, for me and for my siblings. And when you no longer have that safety and that security, he is more than likely the first person that you would think about. Something else, as I think about him calling out to his mom, however, was, and when I first heard about, because I didn't see that part of the video, but when I first heard about him calling out to his mom, there have been a myriad of stories where people are close to death, and I think this is what April was alluding to, if I heard her correctly, where people are close to death and they see loved ones who have already passed on. And I just wonder, at that moment, at the very end of his life, was he calling out for his mom because he actually saw?
Seeing her,
He
yeah.
saw her. He saw her.
At the very end, at the very end of his life.
And I believe she had her hands wide open, waiting for him. That's what mamas do.
Right.
That's what mamas do. She was there waiting for him, receiving his soul and his spirit. Yeah. Go ahead, Quincy. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's cool. And I also saw a comment that someone made that I want to see if I can interact with this comment, but I don't want to. If you want to move on to Miss Laurel, then
go.
Okay. So I saw a comment made by, I guess, a viewer who mentioned vandalism, looting, attacking people, burning, do nothing to encourage justice. One, for me as a Christian, I do not support vandalism. I do not support looting, and I do not support attacking people. But I hope the commenter also do not support attacking people, because ultimately George Floyd was attacked. And they're right, it does not encourage justice, but it does open people's eyes to see the hurt that's in individuals. And strangely enough, George Floyd passed was brought up as well. The question I always ask, be it a police officer killing someone black, white, Mexican, Asian, it doesn't matter. The question, me personally, that I always ask is, what occurred at the moment the police officer pulled his or her trigger, or what occurred at the moment that particular person that was in police custody passed away? That's all that matters at that particular moment. It's dangerous to bring up someone's past because the commenter and the person who's talking now have a past. And I thank God that my past is not on Facebook for the world to see. So I think we need to really listen as it relates to this. And then we need to be people of grace, whether we Christian or not, and remember that we all had a past. And the overwhelming majority of us have done things that that could have allowed us to be arrested. So I think we need to be gracious and loving when we're talking about very difficult subjects.
Quincy, let me just jump in with this real quick. First of all, nobody deserves death. Nobody deserves 8 minutes and 40 seconds a knee on somebody's throat. I don't care what he have done, okay? I don't care what his past is. I don't care if he was a drug dealer, drug pusher in the prison, whatever his past was, he don't deserve death.
That's right.
With the cameras on him, that was totally disrespectful and it was totally rude.
Right.
It showed no respect at all.
Right.
And they're still killing us. They're still killing young Black people. I'm going to tell you this. Be careful, y'all, because this is a defeat of the enemy. It's a trick to get us all worked up and in the flesh and want to hate each other. White people is not the only people that don't like Black people. All right? There have been more white people out there protesting more than ever. Chinese, I haven't seen no Chinese men out there. We support Chinese people. I ain't seen them out there protesting. I didn't see the Indian people out there. I didn't see the Italians out there. They might have been some, but we are just like a whole bunch of people, not just whites. So it's a trick of the enemy. We cannot allow this demonic spirit. It's a demonic evil spirit of the systems to try to get us divided and fight and concentrate on white. We can't just concentrate on white. There's a lot of people that don't like us, okay? But for him to make that comment, it was out of order. It was very insensitive, and it wasn't nice, okay? And if you got children, I pray that a cop don't shoot your child down the streets like a dog, okay? See, you become nice when you become humble when it happens to you. But if you all think you're so privileged and nothing happened to you, then you think, it's the mentality is off. That's all I can tell you. Go ahead, April.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. Well, first off, I think that when you talk about the comments, like, I think that placing things into context, one, yes, he may have had a criminal history. Two, he may have been committing an offense at the time. Right. However, it is everyone's right to a court, a judge, a lawyer, you to be read your Miranda rights, or like Miranda rights, I'm sorry. Miranda. To be read those and be able to have to be able to speak on your behalf on what happened. And so I think that what the issue is and what we're finding is that we do have circumstances where African-American men or women, or just like where we may be in a position where the police feel like, okay, I could pull them over, but they are not the judge. You are not the courts. You're not a jury, and you're not an executor. So our laws are violated. That's the issue. The laws, our civil rights are being violated when you say, well, you did these things, and so it's okay for me to kill you. It's okay for me to, rough you up, choke you out. If you get disrespectful, I could shoot you, and it's okay because you did a crime. And it makes the people be criminal. And unfortunately, even if a crime is committed, you are not in position, just as the police officer, to be able to make the judgment and also make the sentencing a death execution at the time of a crime. That's not your job.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I'm gonna tell you this: it's all getting ready to come to a head and come to a close, because God see all this mess and all this dirtiness, keep shedding innocent blood, killing people for no reason out of hate. Your time is coming. It's coming to an end. And I'm talking to all those that got murder in your heart. You is not gonna get away with this stuff, okay? You're not gonna get by. You're not gonna get away. And God is gonna vindicate. Bottom line, you see what He's doing. Judgment is on the earth. Judgment is in the house of God. God is not playing. And if you think you're gonna get away with killing these young Black boys and just killing anybody, you out of order, and you're not right, and you're going to get yours. All right, let's go on. I want to move on to I don't want to miss none of my okay, so we out here protesting and all that. Lord have mercy. We've been protesting, I think all y'all hit on that, 400 years or more. First of all, we didn't even start protesting. White people started protesting back in 1619. So stop acting like Black people is the only one protested. White people started this mess. And okay, let's get off of that. White people started this. We learned protesting and looting and all that from white people. Okay. Why are we protesting? 400 years of protesting. Nothing has changed. You still have it in the amendment that you can need Black people. You can shoot them down like a dog.
Well, I believe that there has been change from protest. I think that we have a history since, I mean, I know you went back to the 1600s, but we have a history of, at least over the past 100 years where protest has helped with changing and abolishing laws that were unjust. I mean, we have
Martin Luther King and all. Okay, yeah, all right.
yeah, okay.
But it still needs to
Martin Luther
change.
King Jr. We have, Jesse Jackson, all those people that were able to help us with being able to have the right to vote, for us to be able to be considered, to be able to have the same schools that other our white counterparts have. So I think that there is a component that back in the 60s got lost. And so, and from the 60s, that ball kind of just rolled on to the side. And I think that right now, what we're finding is where we need to make sure that we do not get lost in what is the ask. What are we asking? Are we asking for everyone to wear shirts to say Black Lives Matter in a protest? I'm not. That's not my ask. My ask is that we look at the laws, because it's the laws, it's the rules that has helped shift the changes. And there have been change, because if there wasn't any change, then we would still be enslaved. I am all for desegregation. I think that, unfortunately, we're moving in a time where this racial tension could possibly revert us back to segregation, where all of our Black money stays in Black communities, and then their white money in white communities. Granted, I understand that there is a part of us that needs to be able to say, I am happy with myself. I'm happy in the skin that I'm in. But regressing back isn't. Inclusion was what we needed. And inclusion needs to go forth. And imprisonment, unlawful imprisonment and unjust imprisonment and murders shouldn't be allowed. And so what is moving that forward is the laws. And I think that what the ask is that we look at the amendments and we hold our congressmen and our congresswomen, the legislation, in we hold them accountable to make those laws and change those rules, change the laws. So then a police officer doesn't feel like, if I'm pulling them over and I can have a petty crime and they'll get away with it. I can get them in prison. I can set them up to go to prison. Let's get rid of those unjust laws, and we work towards that if we're going to be organizing ourselves. That's what I don't want us to get distracted off of. Let's bring flags down, and you don't hate us anymore. You may not, but change the laws. You may not like me. I'm okay with that. But making sure that if there's a law, that you don't get away with murdering my brother. You don't get away with murdering my uncle. You don't get away with murdering another young man that looks like me.
That's right. That's right. Go ahead, Parker. Prophet.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. As April was speaking, well, first of all, I'll say I wholeheartedly agree with April, and it ties into somewhat of my meditation earlier today. I was considering what's necessary in order for us to move forward. And one of the things that I think has unfortunately befallen us in our history is we're always waiting around for a spearhead, for a certain leader to go out in front of us and to proclaim what we all believe. But all African American people, all Black people are not monolithic. We don't all think the same thing. And we're a very diverse people, just like any other ethnic people of whatever descent. We all are conservative about some things and liberal about others. None of us are all one thing. We don't all consider one thing in terms of conservatism. We're not all leaning toward one party or the other. We're very dimensional people, and we feel different things about different issues. I'm just saying all that to say that there's so many of our people who don't vote. So when it comes to what April was saying about pushing legislators to do their jobs, to make certain changes that are necessary, it starts with all of us, first of all, valuing our own voices as individuals and using those voices to work within our own sphere of influence. You would be surprised how many people would sit back and just watch television and never spend any time with themselves to decide what they feel or think or believe about anything, what their personal stance is about anything. They'll get their opinion from Fox or from CNN or ABC or whatever, news commentator, looking for other people's opinions or reading online. All of that's wonderful to see what's going on if you want to know what people think about it. But often people won't really do the research themselves and hypothesize something and then take the time within themselves to search their own hearts to say, I believe this way. I feel like this. I would like to see that. And then vote according to what they think themselves. And then have conversations with people in their own small sphere of influence. Just consider how many people might vote that would never vote if we would say, hey, let's all go do it together. I'll come pick you up and it'll be all five of us or whatever. You would be surprised how many people think they have no influence at all and don't even listen for their own heart. So they don't care about what they feel. And then therefore they don't really share it with anybody else and definitely don't go to the voting booth. If we could, as individuals, get ourselves out there to get our voices heard, there would be a very different look in our congressional sessions. Then we will start to see the changes that we're looking for. Those congressional seats look like everybody else except us because we're not saying anything. And we have a tendency as a people to be so reactive instead of proactive. We wait until somebody puts a knee on a neck before we want to rise up. When let's just, I'll use this as an example and I'll shut up because Laura hasn't said anything yet. Back in the 70s, the LGBT, prior to them even having a call letters, anything, gay people, they were lobbying Washington Congress people to get certain legislation passed to pave the way for the acceptance of their lifestyle and all the stuff that they wanted. So now, 30 plus years later, almost 40 years later, really 40 plus years later, they're basking in some of the warmth of the rays of the sun that they prepared for years, for a generation. They didn't wait until the 2010 to start saying we want some rights. They were doing that stuff way before the church had anything to say about it. And then all of a sudden the church wants to come up in the 90s with let's sign this petition and let's stop it. This is an abomination against God. Well, where were y'all at 25 years ago, 30 years ago? And so it is the same thing with this. We wait so long for another Dr. King, another Jesse Jackson, or another Al Sharpton, when we all have individual voices and we could be going into the booths instead of just talking amongst ourselves and watching television and making our voices heard to enforce, all the way, force Congress to put in some faces that look like ours with ideas and ideals that match ours. This is our opportunity to do it. If we don't want to see another Trump, we need to get out there and vote and stop waiting on everybody else to just run their mouth on television to see, whether or not we will or will not agree. And the last thing I want to say is this. Everybody is not called to do exactly the same thing. Everybody should not be on the street marching. Because back to our different spheres of influence, we all have a different sphere of influence, and we can influence where God has placed us. He did not place me to be on the street. I'm a preacher, I'm a singer, I'm a musician, I am a mentor, I'm an author. All the people who listen for the things that I care about, that's my sphere of influence. I can minister to them, I can serve them, and rally them around a certain thought process that I believe, according to the scriptures, is best. And then, with hopefully armed with enough information, they can do what's best for them and their families, and on this thing goes. Don Lemon is on television. He has no business marching down the street in New York City. He can be on his television show as an anchor. You know what I'm saying? Getting behind the thoughts that are the most germane to what our people need. That's his sphere of influence. That's his platform. He's better off using that to espouse whatever he believes. And turns out, other than him being homosexual, he agrees with the Black Lives Matter agenda, and he talks about that. What good would he be doing on the street holding up a banner? That would be to give up his platform for something lesser when he could use it for something greater and reach people all over the world. So everybody doesn't have to do the same thing. Work in your sphere of influence and operate the best way you can where God has placed you.
All right. Thank you for that.
Yes, sir. I mean,
Laurel, do you want to say something? Because we haven't heard from you. Unmute your mic. There you go. Unmute your mic. You just muted it. There you go. Come on.
I've had all kinds of tech issues getting to this point. So,
No, it's okay. And then we hear from you.
Going back to the very first question.
Okay. Okay. Let's go back to the question.
Going back to the very first question, recently participated in a rally in Groveport where we were asked to kneel for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And a Black woman of age 17 pleaded with us, white people. She said, check your people, right? Check your people. Because that 8 minutes and 46 seconds, going back to the very top of your discussion, puts everything in perspective. I was in the Ohio State House the day that killing a police dog was made a first-degree felony. And it seemed like all of the discussion was up to that point was about how police dogs are as important as police officers, and if you kill a police dog, it is killing a police officer. He's a uniformed officer. And one woman stood that day and said, I want to read off to you all of the crimes that against women and children that are lower than first-degree felonies. And she went down to fourth-degree misdemeanors that were still horrible violences against women and children. Wow. And that was the beginning of my understanding of what Black Americans feel when they look at this kind of violence. To say, absolutely, if someone kneeled on the neck of any animal for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, you would be outraged. But it's embarrassing and infuriating how many of my white friends, and I have a fairly well curated, following. I don't accept just anybody as a friend, but even among those friends and followers, how many said just what you said, April, what you said, Quincy, what you said, Niles, about looking into somebody's past as if it's some reason for what you just did right now. And as a police officer, what you just did right now, you're going to say what you just did right now is justified by anything in this man's past? No. The answer is a hard no. That's a hard stop right there. And I'm going to continue on just because I have been really quiet. Sorry, and interrupt me if you want to. But I have to say, it's shocking. Oh, sorry.
Like, please don't leave, Laurel.
Oh, no. Actually, if you want to accept my other camera, I might be able to hear better. And I'll turn this camera off. But in the meantime, what I hear from even Christians who are white and Christians who are concerned and white, they see this time as potentially dangerous and separating. And I heard you guys say the same thing, that the draw to segregation is the easy thing to do. It's painful. It puts Black Americans back in a very more painful position, right? But it's so dangerously tempting. And the awkwardness and the discomfort for whites to walk into that.
We can still hear you. I don't know where.
Okay, but gotcha. It is concerning for whatever reason, because it's easy just to stay with the status quo. But as a Christian, we know no matter what wrong has been done, we can come to a place of repentance, followed by lamentation, followed by reconciliation, followed by reparation. And if I were walking down the Olentangy Trail in Columbus and I came across a whole open space filled with people who were on fire in different states of being put out of fire, you know, some people were already being triaged and some people were still on fire. If I put out the fire on one person, I wouldn't say, "You're not on fire anymore, you're fine," and walk away, right? I would stay. I would see the pain of the people who were on fire, the people who were tending to those people who were on fire, the people who had just been burned and I put out. And I would stay until I could figure out what I could do to make this better, right? You don't put it out and walk away. And I think white Christians especially are saying, well, don't punish me for something I never did. But the fact is that when someone has been wounded, and we have been among the group that has done the wounding, we don't just say, your wound is relieved now, which even if it's not, but you don't just say the wound is relieved, be well. You stay until the wound is truly healed and things have been made right. And that's what I feel like white Christians could do at this time. And we're not sure how to do it truly.
Wow. Wow. Really, really good. Really good. That's a whole nother issue. You know, that's a whole nother issue. Go ahead, Quincy. I want to get your input on that.
As it relates to the laws, there are three things that really bother me today. And that's convict leasing, consent decrees, the lack of consent decrees, and qualified immunity. The consent decrees and qualified immunities almost allow for cops to do pretty much whatever they want. Obama implemented consent decrees. Trump stopped them for whatever reason. He stopped them. But then you also have this entire concern with the 13th Amendment, where we look at the 13th Amendment as abolishing slavery. Well, there's actually an exception clause in the 13th Amendment that says slavery is abolished except for, and then they can use these minor offenses to put individuals in jail. And then when you see the jail labor, and especially the slave patrols, you will see it looks just like it looked in slavery times. So there's definitely some things that need to be changed on the books as it relates to us being individuals who are Christians. Micah 6:8 is clear. God expects us to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. But the expectation is that we will be people of justice. If someone deserves to go to jail, they should go to jail. But it should be just, fair, and equitable across the lines, regardless of one's ethnicity. The concern that I'm seeing and that we're seeing is when white people resist, they do not get the same treatment a lot of times when black people are being obedient to cops. Everyone has to remember now that everyone has a cell phone camera. So as soon as you leave out of your house, your mind has to be, okay, I'm on camera somewhere, be it on someone's cell phone or on someone's house. The homes in my community, a lot of us have cameras on our home. So we are seeing everything. We are seeing how cops are treating certain ethnicities, and we're seeing also how cops are treating other ethnicities. And what hurts me in particular is other Christians who feel like we shouldn't speak up. When Proverbs 31 verses 8 and 9 says the exact opposite, that we should speak up. We should speak up with an expectation of righteousness, and we should speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. since George Floyd has been murdered, we will, and I especially, will speak up for him. But not just for him, even for our white brothers and sisters. We have a major issue with policing in America, a major issue. And I think that really needs to be looked at closely. And even the behavior of the cops in Atlanta. I can't imagine, again, shooting someone in the back. And I've had to tell people recently that I can make it clear on here as well. There's not a law on the books that I will support that allows for shooting someone in the back. There's not a law on the book that I will support for that. I do, however, believe in respecting authority. Authoritative figures, according to Romans chapter 13, are given by God. So for those of us who are Christians, we should respect the position of authority, even if the person in that position is not leading in that position in the way that he or she should. But there's a lot of things as it relates to laws. There's a lot that can be that needs to be changed. Even with the Voting Rights Act, if I remember correctly, they have to renew that every 10 years. We do not have Black people do not have perpetual voting rights. If they do not renew it every 10 years, we will no longer have the right to vote. But even as it relates to that, you see some of the things going on in Atlanta now with voting machines in certain precincts and in certain areas and long lines only in certain areas because of those voting machines. There's still a hint of voting suppression that goes on. But anyway, that's something I can talk about forever. So I'll just end there.
Whoa, man, this is so good. Thank you guys. Y'all making me accountable. I'm trying to calm down. I am calm. Y'all holding me accountable. I love that. Y'all talking about the cops. Yeah, that's the issue.
Miss Cassandra, I got with Laurel, she had brought up a thing with the Christians and the white Christians. I honestly feel like when we elected our new president, Trump, that he was elected based on some of the premises of the church, with gay rights. I know that that's something that we have with in the Democratic Party, they were for that. A lot of the other things when it comes to money and taxes and things like that, those are the other platforms that a Trump will run on. So, but the biggest platform that he had when he was voted in was making America great again. And so I guess when you talk about the Christians that may be of a Caucasian ethnicity, when they talk about that, what does make America great again? What America was that? What era that America was great in? And then because to me, I can assume that had something to do with when jobs, all of the industry was here, cheap labor, from whether it was slaves or you didn't have to pay people as much for your corporations, and so then you would see where some of the things that are happening with the division didn't necessarily come just from African Americans, where we're protesting and we're talking about segregating again. But I think that there was an undertone in his campaigning when he was elected that was emboldening the police or emboldening people that may have white supremacy in their heart or a history of that. And they said, okay, we're going to make America great. And that means that we are superior and everybody else, the immigrants, the African Americans, they're all less. And we need to filter them back to a system where we don't have to pay as much for their labor. But, I'm just wondering, do some of your Christian friends ever talk about what America they were talking about? What era was America great? because when we hear it, it seems offensive. I know when I hear it, it sounds offensive, and it sounds like you're talking about a time when I was enslaved or when things were separate and I was not looked at as a human. I was looked at as 3/5 of a person. And so like, and I think that that's where, you know, where we have a leader in place that is not leading with love, but is also leading on Christian values, but really is not living Christian values from what I perceive. And I'm not the only one that thinks that way.
I mean, that was really, really nice. I like that. Let me just ask this. I want to get all my points out. Okay. What can we, I know y'all talked about how we could get better. The police need to be educated. And when I mean educated, meaning that they need to have some type of diversity classes. They need to be diverse. They need to have training. They need to go for a psych evaluation, because obviously these people that sit there and with the camera in your face and killing folks, there's something mentally challenging about this. Okay, you're not right mentally. So we need to do that. These people that's locked up in prisons, y'all, we have to talk about that for no reason at all, just locked up. They're in there serving time for stuff that they have never done in their whole entire life. You cannot say, when you look at us and they keep killing us, we are out here alone, y'all. I'm telling you, if God don't move, we're out here alone. The judges is not supporting us. The attorneys are not supporting us. The prosecutors, the politics. If we had support, why is the stuff still going on? We don't have the backing. We don't have the support. And the systems that know this. That's why they keep doing it. And something got to change. Anybody could take it. It's just horrible. We are out here alone. You cannot say it. We can't fight this by ourselves. You got politics. The politics is not in our corner. So the Supreme Courts are not in our corner. Congressmen are not in our corner. They're not for us. They don't care.
Let me just say real quick. The Bible says that in the book of Proverbs says that we should listen to the cries of the poor. Everyone have more money than somebody else. So all of us are poorer than someone. As it relates to the criminal justice system, however, there's definitely a race concern, but there's also a class concern. I know some Black people who were arrested for things that they didn't do, but they were of means, so they were able to hire a good attorney to get them off. So I think some of it is definitely a race issue, but it's also a class issue. You also mentioned something else, Miss Cassandra. If God doesn't move, I agree wholeheartedly. We out here. We just out here fending for ourselves. We need to really, really listen. You mentioned Job, and let me just say a quick word about that. Because Job didn't do anything. There was another conversation outside of his knowledge. And his friends shows us what we should do, but also shows us what we should not do. And that is listen. So often we are listening in order to respond rather than listening in order to understand. If those in law enforcement and if those who are making the laws, if they listen to understand the hurts, the passion, the concern of people of color, I think they will start to make a change. Next thing that Job friends teach us that once they begin talking, they begin talking too much, and in essence end up blaming Job for the situation that he was in. Job, like us, is not perfect, but you can't, if someone has said it this way, it's psychotic to bring up someone's past for their current situation. To bring up George Floyd's past and seeing the way he was killed, some people will view that as being totally psychotic. As it relates to Black people, as it relates to people of color, we're not perfect. We definitely have some things that we need to work on. There's definitely a subset of us that other people need to mentor, need to show that there can be other ways of handling things. What we don't want to do as Black people, and I'm going longer than I said I will, so forgive me. Let me just get this out real quick. What we don't want to do as Black people is to tear one another down. Historians suggest that when Martin Luther King was doing his protest and when he was in the height of his career, if you will, about 20% of the African American community supported him.
That's right.
About 20%. And I just wonder how we would view him if they didn't kill him, even though he was a person who preached nonviolence.
Absolutely.
And we just need to, let me put it on us. We need to do better as a people. I think Niall Parker mentioned earlier, we need to vote. We need to do better as a people, but we also need other individuals to come alongside us to break down the systems that are still in play today, and that some of them I can run down, but I don't want to take up the rest of the time. But systems that are still in play today, we need other individuals who are in positions of power to be anti-racist and help break down even some of these current systemic injustices.
And let me jump in here real quick, Quincy, and then I'm gonna hear from April. I want to share this with you. That's why it's not a black and white issue. It's a heart issue. And that's what the enemy and the demonic systems want us to do. This thing, we have to get it right, because we know Black people and other people of other different nationalities have killed Blacks, right? Look how we got bad Black cops too. Don't get it twisted.
Mm-hmm.
We
Absolutely.
got Black cops. We got, I don't know about you, but when I'm on my job, I've been attacked by my own Black people.
Right.
Mm-hmm. When I go to Black churches, I'm sorry, I've been attacked by my own Black people in the church. I'm just saying. Right. So I just wanted to jump in that. That's true. It's not a black and white issue. It's a good and evil thing. And until we can get that right, we have to go in the spirit and look, it's good versus evil. It's good versus evil. It's not black and white. That's a trick.
Right.
And it's trying to throw us off, and it's been throwing us off for years. But not today, buddy. We see you, we got you, and we know what you up to. And we have to know, we have to study history. This stuff is repeating itself. Like, come on, like, it don't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. This is a game that we set into. No. It's good versus evil. You got some evil Black people just as well. You got evil white people. All right. And if you really want to know about history, now I know my history. I could go all the way back to Africa where we was kings and queens. Don't do that. Don't go there with me. All right. It was the Black Africans that sold us out to slavery. Don't do that.
Yep.
All right. And they had slaves too. It wasn't just people that had slaves.
Sure did.
All right. They treated their own kind just as horrible and just as bad as the white people did us. Now, come on. Now, let's not go there. So if we're gonna deal with this thing at truth, we have to call it evil versus bad, and we have to stand up for what's right and what's justice. Right. And we're gonna have those that don't want to stand for justice and truth and righteousness. All right, bye. So, go ahead. I went too far. Go ahead.
No, you did. Like, you said so much stuff. Oh my gosh! Like, I'm like, how you said you was on fire. I'm like, I want to say so much, but it's like, okay. One, like there, like before George Floyd and that knee, right? There were other videos with a gun, and a gun, like, you know, like that reaction to I'm scared, and I may just like a jerk reaction, pull a trigger. You see that has happened on some of the videos, because like I don't know if it was Quincy that said that we have video cameras that kind of we can watch things now, so we see these things, and so you see these interactions with the cops, and it seems like what the heck is going on here? But there have been times where I actually have looked at the videos, and that's why I just couldn't look at George Floyd's, where you watch the interaction where, okay, a guy is asked to pull over. I need your license and your registration. He goes into his glove compartment, bam. Or you're asking me to, you know, let you know what I have here. I'm talking to you in a nice and a calm voice, and then bam. But one of the things that I found interesting is that looking in the eyes of the police officers when these interactions are occurring, and when Miss Sandra talked about the spiritual component, like I actually had looked like I think it was Sandra, where she got pulled over, looking in the eyes of the police officers, and you could see like it almost to me looked like an out-of-body experience, like a demonic force was on those gentlemen in that moment. And I think that, as Christians, we also, I know that I'm encased in this skin. It's it's brown, it's tanned. You're encased in your skin, Miss Laurel, and your tone is, creamy. But that doesn't mean that we don't have a spirit that's there and a soul. And so I think that we do get caught up in these encasings. And really, at the end of the day, these are spiritual attacks and demonic forces of hate. And, I can have as many conservative views as possible as a Christian. I have conservative views. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the Democratic views that got passed along. One of those being homosexuality. That, I have gay family members. I love them. I'm not going to not love people because of their choice for sexual orientation. But based on what I read in my Bible, I don't necessarily agree with that. Okay. But just because I may not agree with abortion, just because I don't agree with, what someone's lifestyle choices is, does not mean that I negate and not look at what a person is doing when it causes division and hate. And there's a spirit of hate that was being brewed even prior to the election of our new president, 45. And I honestly, and I have to be honest with you guys, before this whole coronavirus, before these race riots that have happened right now and this racial division, I honestly was going back and forth in my mind, like, I wonder who I could vote for, because I'm an independent thinker. I'm not going to go so far left, because I don't necessarily agree with that. And I'm, not necessarily a far right. So do I vote for that? But then it's like, when you look at what a person's doing, when they're saying, well, you start the looting, I'm shooting, we shooting, it's like, it's a spirit of hatred and, and division. And I feel like it's demonic. And I don't care if you hold up a Bible in a photo op. That does not mean that the values that we hold as Christians are what you're upholding, because you are causing division. And God does say in the Bible, I think that you brought up the scripture in Proverbs, but in Ecclesiastes 5:8, if you see in a province, our province in the United States, the oppression of the poor and the violation of justice and righteousness, do not be mad to the matter, for the high affair is watched by a higher power. God is watching. And I don't care if you are trying to hold on to and say that you are being a Christian, when at the end of the day, there's a higher power. We are being governed by spiritual things. And so I'm going to be praying in my tongues. I'm going to be speaking against these evil things. And I definitely am speaking against division within our community, whether that's black and white, because I agree with Miss Sandra on that. We do not need to be divided. It was always, when we came together, it was on one accord that we made things happen. And it's going to be one accord. And so I'm against us coming together and saying, you know what, I'm going to go back into my hub of African Americanness and all black, everything black, because the truth of the matter is the wealth that we have accumulated, the ones that have accumulated wealth, if you could be honest, I'm the entertainers and all those people, is because of globalization and people coming together. Those numbers you don't just get those numbers from one population. You get those numbers when you got a whole group of people. And so divided we fall. It's together we stand. And I'm all about togetherness, but we do need to change those laws. And I'm like rallying Laurels and anybody else. Hey, let's come together and fix this, because it's a broken system. You know, I come up with some reasons why the system broken, but you know, hey, that's another conversation. But at the end of the day, hey, you ain't gotta like me. You don't have to love me. You can have your flag over there. But at the end of the day, change them laws, change them rules, amend the 13th. You know, I want all those amendments changed so that you don't think that it's okay. That police officer cannot get away with murdering African American people or immigrants or whoever else just because they don't look like you.
That's right. That's right.
All
They
right,
they here to they're here to serve the white people. They're not here to serve us, and we want to change that. Laura, and then Parker.
I just want to speak to the issue, what you brought up, Sandra, about evil and personal evil and systemic evil. I think it's perfectly reasonable and it's right to say that this is a heart issue and it's an issue of righteousness versus evil. But I never want to see anyone who looks like me saying, I stand clean before God regarding racism. I do not have evil in my heart toward any black person or any person who doesn't look like me. Therefore, I have done all I can. That would be a terrible mistake, and it doesn't go far enough in what God has called us to do. Like was mentioned in Micah 6:8, to do justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with our God. It goes far beyond just standing personally with the knowledge you're clean before the Lord in this issue. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Parker, go ahead. And I got two more. I got two more issues that I want to deal with, and then we close. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I'll just add that for me, so much at the basis of this is about fear. Their fear of us as people, but it doesn't just stop there. It's really, I think, as humans, so many of us fear the unknown, and we fear what we don't understand. And even from childhood, the kids in school who get bullied are the ones who look different, the ones who dress differently, the ones who speak differently, the ones who present something that does not match the status quo. And God made our people very different. There's something about every ethnic group that brings something very unique to the human table, and we're better together. You know, we enhance one another if we can ever look past the aesthetic differences and get to what it is about us as people that makes us different, what we're able to glean from one another, what we're able to gain in terms of knowledge and wisdom and understanding, and how we can enhance the lives of one another. That's only possible when we share, is something that it's an untold glory. But I think one of the things that stops us again is that fear of the unknown, and communication is key. When I was coming up in school, um, most of my friends, for a good portion of the time, were white because I grew up in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood, and most of the kids were white. And so they would bus in kids from the projects who looked like me to our school, and I was one of maybe 3 or 4 black families who lived in our neighborhood, and we walked to school. All the other black kids were bused in, and so as a result of that, the Lord blessed me. I'm seeing all the way into my life today how He used that experience to teach me how to communicate differently and to cross different ethnic backgrounds and to understand the value of cross pollination. amongst different ethnic backgrounds, and how it's very necessary, if you're going to be understood, to go into other camps and understand how they talk, understand what their cares are, and to learn a way of communicating and put yourself in the other guy's shoes. It's impossible for me to be an effective preacher and preach a gospel that only applies to Black people, or try to preach a gospel that would only apply to some other ethnic background. What we offer from the heart of God has to apply to everybody. And I think one of the things that's necessary in terms of Sister Cassandra, you talking about us moving forward. One of the things that's so necessary is that there has to be some people who understand how to communicate the heart of our people where we are to the hearts of others in such a way that it will be understood and thusly received. So that as we do walk forward, we walk forward together, because Black people alone walking forward is still not going to be enough. Like April said, there's something significant about having support from the other backgrounds as well. We can't really have full change if we don't do it together. Black people are what, 12% of the population? Even if we all agreed and we were completely monolithic, it still would not be enough to make the change that's necessary. Black people did not have enough vote to elect Barack Obama 2 times. We had to have help from across the board. He was voted in by almost everybody, a huge margin. This was not just a hairline vote. He just got in by the skin of his teeth. No, it was a landslide both times. That goes to show you that it's possible for us to galvanize behind one system of belief that is good for everybody. Last thing I'll say is this, that back to the issue of fear, it's interesting. The Lord gave it to me this way. The Lord spoke to me one day and said, the drowner always fights the lifeguard. It's just a subconscious thing. It's like, I think Quincy brought up the point of Dr. King and how only 20% of our people were really for him. And one of the things that taught me is that the greatest people among us are generally most appreciated after they're dead. Because when they're dead, they cease to be a threat. Our people are so fearful of accomplishment. We cry out for it, but if we really tell the truth, we're afraid of advancement. And we are afraid when it looks like it's really going to happen. One of the things that God spoke this to me and said, one of the only emotions that can trump fear is anger. And that's why oftentimes it takes an issue that makes people angry enough. Like this 8 minutes and 46 seconds made the people so angry that they came out of their homes and came out of their churches and came out of their comfort zones and took to the streets. Sometimes the Lord will allow something so horrific and so traumatizing that it shakes you out of the place of your comfort and causes anger to make you rise up when you otherwise would have been sitting down for the rest of your life. And the people have become angry. Now, going back to what Cassandra said in the very beginning, the scripture is right. He says, be angry and sin not, which suggests to me that between anger and sin, there's an interim period. There's a little sliver of space right there. God is saying, he's saying, if we really interpret that properly, he's saying, put me in that middle part right there. He's saying, I don't have an issue with you being angry. Anger is significant to your humanity. I don't have a problem with that. Be angry. Right. But before you allow that anger to inform what you do, insert me right there in the middle.
Right there.
Because I want to be the one that informs your action that you take after you are angry, which means he is saying the reason why you want to put me there is because I'm the one that's got the strategy that you need to deal with the thing that made you angry. Be angry. That's fine with me. Go through all the emotions that are significant to your anger. But when you get done with that, insert me there. And when you do, and you yield your emotion and your thinking processes to me, I will inform you and I will give you strategy on what to do. So now we need the strategy from the Lord from on high to tell us how to come together, how to proceed, so we can get the change that we need. Because if we do it out of flesh, again, back to what Sister, I always want to call you Cassie. Sister Cassandra said,
They
You
call
know,
me.
we don't want to get in the flesh and let our anger give us what to do, because we'll never get anywhere. We need strategy from on high. And I just stop there.
Amen. That's so awesome. Oh yeah, I love that. That
Glory
was
to
good.
God. Thank you,
Yeah,
Jesus.
that was good.
Bless your name, Jesus. I believe God.
And God took me back to that. So since we rolling in a prophetic, we rolling with what God said. Let's just all put it all in perspective right here. But I am, and I'm totally in agreement with you, because the Lord has shown me when George Floyd called out Mama, and if you notice that the whole nation came together. There was white, there was black, everybody. A lot of people came together for that particular cause. And you're so right, everybody. It's not going to just be blacks. God wants all nations. God told me that. He said, I'm tired of an all white church, or all Chinese church, or all Indian church, or all white church. I want all nations to come together. Amen. I want all nations to come together. And that's how we're going to change the things in the systems. But we have to talk to each other and not talk at each other. And then we have to respect those that don't feel like we feel. You know that, right?
Right.
I want to talk about the church. I thank God but the Confederate flag, you know all about that stuff. The Confederate flag and the statues. Okay. I'm not happy with. I'm happy, but I'm not happy. All right, y'all talk about that too. I'm happy. I'm happy about that. I'm not, because what is that doing? It's not
Nothing
doing
really.
anything.
Those things are only symbols. And symbols and idols, icons only represent the condition of the heart. Idolatry has to be in your heart first before you create a symbol to look like what you think. You know, like for instance, in the scriptures, we know that when they put the Ark of the Covenant in the house next to Dagon, the idol, they came back the next day and Dagon had fallen.
Right.
And then they put him back up on his pedestal, and they came back the next day and it fell and his hand came off. You know, point I'm making is that if you want to take that scenario, or the scenario of the children of Israel in the wilderness when they created the golden calf and all of that, that was representative of the fact that when they were in Egypt, they were splintered in their worship. The reason they made a golden calf was because Egyptians worship cows, among other things. That's one of the things that they worship. So when they went into the wilderness, the purpose of them being out there was God allowed this calamity to drive them out of Egypt, get them out of their comfort zone so that he could introduce himself to them as God, and to pull them out of the splintered worship experience that they had, because their heart was in every other place other than with him.
Right.
What I'm saying is, back to what you were saying about us, church and all this kind of stuff like this. When you really break it down, there was so much idolatry in church, and we were worshiping so many other things, worshiping pastors, worshiping music, worshiping one another, worshiping our own emotions, how we felt, our own ideals, and God is last on the list. No wonder he allows calamity to strike through COVID-19 and make us stay home. I don't know about you, but if you keep coming to my house every week and ignore me, eventually you're not coming to my house.
That's right.
I mean,
That's
come
right.
on.
That's right.
But, the point I'm making is that I really believe the Lord is allowing these things to get our attention, to bring us back to oneness, to bring us together from all of these different things that we're calling God, even though we may not be with our mouths, with our
Right.
hearts. It's idolatry.
Wow.
All
We
right.
have made
Parker,
idols out of
Parker,
so many things.
Parker, let me do this because we gotta go. Let me hit
Okay.
Quincy, let me hit April,
I'm
and let me hit you're good, and Laura, because I want to get off. I got it's Father's Day, and I gotta move. Come on, Quincy. We're gonna do this again. There you go. Come on.
Okay, I'll be real quick. I really don't have anything else to say after Parker.
I know. Parker don't get it all, right?
But let me just say this real quick. You're right. The removal of statues doesn't do anything. For me personally, however, it's just something in me where there's a concern if people are fighting to keep statues erected of people who were either slave owners or those who fought to keep the system of chattel slavery. So I say remove all the statues. It doesn't do anything as it relates to the statutes, to the laws. But for me, let's remove them.
All right,
That's just me.
Quincy, stay right there. I like that, and I agree with you. But they need to change the bills, man.
I agree. I agree.
You know
I agree.
That's what I'm saying. You moving the statues, but my God, why can't you change the bill?
I agree. Now statues just physically, they're just easier to move and easier to get done. We start with the statues. I look at the removal of statues like I look at the charge that a cop will get. The charge is a start. The conviction is what we are looking to achieve. So removal of the statues is just a start. But then we can remove these statutes or change some of the laws and some of the bills at a later time. We have to go.
So we're moving forward. Okay, I get that. Go ahead, April.
Well, so one, I just like in my heart, I just believe that, you know, there are starts, but why do we have to make it a slow process? Like, I think that there was like, why does it have to be something?
You shot us,
like,
man. It only took you a second to shoot us.
Right, yeah. So it's like I don't necessarily need you to prolong and drag this thing out. We done dragged this thing out for more than 60 years. Like, well, we didn't want since 2020. That was in the 60s. It's time. It's done. Look, history is history. You know, like that's how I feel. History is history, and that's what our history is based on in this country. All right, you know that's a part of it. You know, and so we can look at that. We can grow from our history, or we can, you know, get stuck in our history, or we can try to ignore it. And I think that that's what, you know, I would say if we were going to talk about what maybe have happened over the past 20, 30 years is that maybe we was like in a comfort level, like Mr. Parker said, is that we've kind of been in our comfort zone, not really talking about things. And, you know, like, oh, everything is great. Just going to church and, you know, our statues may be in our hearts. And we are like having these idols in our hearts of what we really believe and no one really knows. But then it's like, you know what, you scratch the scab and then, you know, the scab starts to bleed and then you really realize what's underneath and it's there. And so we have to deal with it. Let's deal with it so we can have surgery. Let's remove that. And, you know, let's remove the hate. And or even if you may have, you know, an affinity because you were raised in the South, your great grandfather and your history and lineage is related to where you may have had slaves and you may have felt a certain way. But the laws is what, you know, I believe that we need to just go straight forward because there's other disadvantaged groups like in the homosexual community, and not to negate that because I love everybody. But I'm just saying They know how to get stuff done. They go straight to the court. They go Supreme Court. Check, done. All right. What else did Trump say?
We need everybody.
Go ahead, take care of it.
We need everybody. We need the gay community. We need everybody. We're not going to exclude nobody. We need them to march with us just as much.
I totally agree. I'm just saying, like, you know, just let's get up. We need to get things done quick. And that's like you go straight to the courts. That's what you need to do.
That's right. And I hear you. Laura, go ahead. And then I want to, before you jump in, Laura, you're next. The church is failing. Why do we got to go to church and hear about homosexuality, fornication, adultery, alcoholism, prostituting, lying and stealing, but no sermon on racism and prejudice? If we're going to get delivered, we got to get delivered for real. All right? You know doggone well that you got hate in your heart towards whites. Don't not fake the funk. AME church, African-American churches. You know doggone well you could go to a white church and you could see racist and hatred in their eyes when you walk through the door, but you don't preach about it. You don't deal with it. You don't counsel it. You don't deliver it out. The church is failing because they are being hypocritical. They only preach. I don't preach for money. I don't preach for I don't preach to get an offer. And they know if they talk about prejudice and racism, that they're going to run out their big spenders. This is wrong. It's wrong. We're compromising the gospel. And I'm so disappointed in the church. Thank God some churches that came out, all you white churches out here. I live out here in Pickerington. I live out here in the all white area. Thank God they have been protesting and they have done a wonderful job. This was a miracle. When I tell you this is, when I came here, there was only a little bit of black people, okay, in this community. This place was very racist, very prejudiced. But I'm telling you, I've been here 26 years to see these white people in high school, junior high school people, all these people coming together and rallying and protesting was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in my whole entire life. This thing is real, okay? We come on a long way. But what I'm saying is that we got to do better. The churches got to do better. They should be out here helping us change these laws. You sitting back, you ain't coming out, you preaching, you keep preaching the same old sermon. I'm tired of hearing your stale sermons. The same sermon. You still hooping and hollering and screaming and yelling, but won't get out here and help us change these systems. Sit down. That's why your church is closed right now, because God ain't having it. Sick of it. I don't want to hear another dry sermon. Get out here and help us change. Go ahead. And then I think I'm closed. I'm done. I will say this, though, and anybody could chime in. They saying that we weak and they don't have no respect for us because we don't own nothing. We don't have nothing to show for. And I'm talking to all these big churches out here, all you big congregants, all you big willers and dealers that got all this money. And you took it for yourselves and took it for your family and never tried to build a community to help your people. They're saying we weak because we don't own them. We don't have no banks. We don't got no schools. Look at right now, coronavirus is shut everything down. And we ain't got nothing. No black schools, no Christian schools. I mean, we got a little bit of stuff, but I'm talking about back in the day when we had a community, we had our own banks, our own land. They don't have respect for us because we don't have nothing. And they know that people are greedy and taking all the money for themselves. Keep blaming white people for this mess. Christians are to blame too. Because you took all the money and you ain't helping nobody with it. I'm done.
Well, Cassandra, I 100% agree that racism is a complete failure of discipleship of the church. The church properly reaching people with the good news and discipling people to live it, not just to believe it, would eradicate the entire problem. And regarding symbols, I'm with Quincy that I don't have a problem with history, but when people resist change simply for the sake of, the symbolism of their own beliefs that are racist, look at the Marines just made it against military laws to display the Confederate battle flag just in the last 10 days. And for those people, those Marines who were displaying that in their personal workspaces or in their command centers, fully knew the meaning of that battle flag. And, undeniably, that's a decision decades and decades overdue. It should never have been displayed, let alone to let it go this long. So the legislation is not on the side of equality at this time, and it's going to take a lot of support to see justice and liberty for all.
It is. Go ahead, Somebody else chime in. I said enough. I'm done. I just want to answer one of these questions on here, but go ahead, Quincy.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I guess before we close, let me just put it out there, because you mentioned that the issue ultimately is one of the heart. That's the root issue. So we need to deal with the root issue. We also need to deal with the fruit that the root produces. Jesus is the only one that can change the heart. As it relates to Christians, we have to live the faith that we say we believe. Bottom line. When I was in seminary, I had a professor who told us, he said, in the heart of every Christian breeds some hypocrisy. And when you see the church, historically, and even today, there's most definitely a lot of hypocrisy in the church. And if Christians can't get it right, we can't expect those who are not Christians to get it right. They are already looking at us. And a lot of times when they're looking at us, they're not looking to learn from us. They're looking to find fault so that they can be quick to call us hypocrites. But the only way change can come is allowing the one and only Savior in our heart. And the one and only Savior of mankind is Jesus Christ, and placing our total trust in his finished work on the cross. That's all I have, unless you have a question.
Oh, that was good. Thank you. We go with let's go with April, then we go with Parker, because he say one, he got, let's go ahead, April, then we get Parker last, because he say he got 1 point, so he be having 10 points. Come on.
He's coming through the Parker. Well, I really don't have much to say. I think that everyone here, I think that it's been a broad conversation when we talk about the church, and that we just continue to grow in love. I definitely think that there was a healing that has happened in not only the earth with us not moving around as much, but also there's been a shift in where our hearts, we've had to rely on our own reading, our own worship. And I think that has been beneficial to the body of Christ. And, and hopefully, many of us who call ourselves Christians have been able to utilize that time where we have to be in our own space and have to be able to look at what, God and the resources that, he's given us through books and the Bible, and being able to say, okay, what is God really saying? And that, one, that I'm going to do what God says, the discipleship. We have ministers online that could preach to us and be able to help teach us. But at the end of the day, every Christian has a responsibility to go home and study notes or look at some devotions and being able to grow. And if we're not growing, I think that we have these, incubator baby stages that we stay in, and we need to move past those as Christians. And I think that we are definitely in interesting times. We got born in an interesting time. Our baton in the race, is interesting. But I think that, everyone here has their platforms. They have their bit in the race. And I think that we continue to, have these conversations, be open and candid, and then love. And that hopefully we can start to see some shifting and changes and continue to pray, because God has to tell us what it is that we need to do. We need our marching orders, because at the end of the day, we don't know what this leg of the race is going to lead. Where's the end of this?
You're right, April. You're right, April. We need all of us to come together. We need Blacks, white, Africans, Chinese, Indian, all nations, everybody. Children, everybody to come together. Amen. Christians to come together, Muslims to come together, everybody to come together. We cannot just put everybody. We can't hate Muslims. There's some good Muslims out here. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. Go ahead, Parker.
Okay, well, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Welcome.
It's been such a pleasure to hear all of you and to glean from each of you. I learned so much just sitting here today. Jeremiah 29:11 is my favorite scripture. And it says, it's the Lord speaking to us saying, I know the thoughts that I think towards you, thoughts of good and not of evil, to give you hope in the future and to bring you to an expected end. And the last thing I want to say, just as a word of encouragement to everyone listening and to all of you that are sharing this with me, that this is not the end for us. The Lord has seen the end before the beginning, and he knows what will transpire in the middle. And he sends us this word to say, in spite of the fact that what you're seeing is evil, that is not my thought about you. Your context around you may be evil, but my thoughts concerning you are good.
That's
And
good.
he's saying, I want you to know that even in the midst of this tragedy and turmoil, there's hope for you because there's a future. That word future never would have been inserted into that scripture if this moment was supposed to be the end for us. So he's saying this current tragedy is not the end result of your life. And one thing I know about Black people and people in general, but especially about us, we're the most resilient people on earth. Look at what we have overcome. The things that we've been through would have killed most people. The things that most people commit suicide over, we trudge through. The mucky and miry waters that take anybody else under, we prevail. So I want to say to everybody that feels like, you're full of fear and that your context is evil, that does not mean that God's thoughts about you are evil, because they are not. His thoughts about you are good, and that all of this is working together for your good. If everything about us needed to be good for us to get to a good place, then he never would have told us in Romans 8:28 what he said. He told us all things work together for the good to them who love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose, which means that that's the good and the bad. So whatever label you want to put on your experience, God said it's working together for your good. Even when you don't understand it, we trust his process, just like a teacher who creates a lesson plan. No kid likes the test, but they know before the beginning of the school year starts, these are the things that are going to be necessary to get you through graduation. So even if the stuff you don't like, I'm going to force you to get it because I'm trying to get you someplace. And COVID-19 and these race wars and all of this stuff is to get us to the expected end. God's got a plan for us.
Amen.
And I'm trusting
I
it.
love that.
I want to encourage y'all
I
to
love
do it
that.
too.
I love that. Thank you so much. Quincy, do you got
Yes,
your
ma'am.
screen up? You got your screen up? Because you read them comments from Sandra. I don't want her to be ignored. Read that comment.
She have several.
Read the one 243.
Let me read off
You want to read all of them from her? Okay, go ahead.
243. So she made one statement that said, oh, actually, she was referring to the guy earlier, said his past, referring to George Floyd past, has nothing to do with how the police handled him. There's more force used with blacks and especially black men. And I think videos have shown that to be true. Another statement she made at 1:43 Central Time, Supreme, I don't know if the Supreme or Supreme Court, what Supreme rules blacks are not citizens. This is what has to be changed in the U.S. Constitution. That may be a question or more dialogue to get a full understanding of what she's meaning. I love what she said later, though. She said, have the 10 Commandments back up while taking down the slave owner statues.
That's good. I
And
like
then,
that.
then she says, racism is a power structure that white society has built upon. Blacks have to stop marching and praying and act. I think we do need to pray, but we need to include action in our prayers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for hanging out with me today on y'all Father's Day. I pray that y'all have a wonderful, wonderful Father's Day. And thank you for spending it with me. And thank you, Laurel, for being a warrior. You a strong girl. We love you, Laurel. Did I say your name right? Laurel?
It's the Pennsylvania state flower. So I'm from like Appalachia in Pennsylvania, and that's where my name Laurel comes from. It means a victory crown, though, so I'm willing to, go around and distribute them.
Laurel, thank you for hanging out with the black people today. Amen. Come on, give her a hand, y'all. She hung out. All my other white friends, they were scared and carrying on. Man, please. All right, we love you. Thank you, Quincy. Thank you, Niall. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, God bless. All right,
Bye-bye.
Bye.